Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again. I hope that you and your loved ones are safe and healthy in this time of global uncertainty. And if you're like me, you're probably stuck at home and you have been for at least a few weeks. And, if you are like me, then probably being stuck home gives you the perfect opportunity to be in front of your computer and work on building up your developer skills. Lately, I've been working with D3 a bit. I hadn't worked with it for a while. I've forgotten how much I enjoyed working with it before. But D3 is a really nice JavaScript library that, at least if you're into data and data visualizations, it helps you to do those really nicely. And I've used D3 on a project I built recently. Of course, I think everyone has tried to build a COVID-19 data tracking app. I used the D3 library to help me build these charts as well as this world map. And I could tell you the number of cases in a country based on the color of the country. Excuse me, I promise I'm not sick. Just need a little water. All right, and then of course I've got my data displayed in table form as well. But yeah, D3 is a nice library, and it uses HTML, SVG, and CSS. And if you're not familiar with SVG, SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. It allows you to create scalable images, meaning that if you created an image and it was, say, 500 pixels by 500 pixels in one instance, then you could expand it to be 1000 by 1000 and it would still have the same resolution. There would be no degradation in picture quality like there would be with, say, a JPEG. So today we're just going to focus on SVGs, and it's going to be a simple introduction on the basic SVG shapes, SVG elements that you would use to create shapes. Maybe if you could combine some of those shapes, you'd make a logo or something like that. I use them sometimes for the websites I build. And it's been a useful tool, not just SVGs, but D3 in general. It's been a useful tool for me at work, and it helped me to get a job at one point. So it is worth learning, especially if you are looking to become a front-end developer. But like I said, today we're just going to focus on SVG. So let's go ahead and start up a little project. I've got a repository at my GitHub. It's called D3 React Tutorial, and you can just clone it, and that gives you a little bit of a head start, so we don't have to worry about all the setup. So in whatever folder you like, go ahead and just do git clone. I'm going to call my project D3 React. cd into that folder. Do an npm install. Go ahead and bring that folder into your workspace. Once the installation is done, go ahead and check out the package.json file. Of course, this is taking a little bit of time. You can see that the only dependency that I brought in besides the usual create React app dependencies is just a Google font here, and I only did that because I like the font myself. I haven't included the D3 library yet, just because we're not going to be using D3 at this point. So we'll import it in a later video. So for now, you should be able to successfully start the web server, the development server. And that should be all you have. I have a homepage component, and inside that component we're going to import an SVG Sandbox component, and that's where we'll be doing our painting with SVG. So for now, go into your SRC folder, and in your components folder, create another folder, and we'll just call this SVG Sandbox. Alright, inside that folder, create a new file, just call it sandbox.js. Actually, I'm sorry, I wanted to make that a JSX file. Very good. And also create another file, and we'll just call this sandbox.css. Good. Alright, so just do the usual thing, import React from React. Import the style sheet. give our wrapper div a class name of canvas. It'll be the canvas that we paint on, basically. Alright, good. So go into now your pages folder, which you should have if you've cloned my repository. Go to the home.jsx file. Go ahead and import that sandbox file. Alright, I do not know why that did that. Okay. And then underneath your header, just use that sandbox element or component. Okay, good. So nothing should have changed on your main page just because we haven't added anything to that sandbox component, but we'll do that now. So you can get a really nice, easy introduction to SVG Elements if you go to the SVG Element reference page at MDN Web Docs. For example, you can copy and paste this code into your sandbox element. And if you look at your page now, you have this big massive circle. Alright, now if you look at your settings, and by the way, you can get rid of this because we're using this inside of JSX and HTML, so that won't change anything. So if you look at your numbers here, like for example, you have CX, CY, and R. This CX basically represents the X coordinate of the center of your circle, and the CY represents the Y coordinate of the center of your circle, and R represents its radius. Okay, but you might be thinking, okay, 50 pixels, 50 pixels, 50 pixels, why do I have this big massive spot on my screen? All right, and that's because in HTML is unitless, so the pixels, if you don't specify them in CSS, for example, then you're not going to actually get it to be 50 pixels. So what we can do, and I want to make this a little bit bigger, so let's make our view box 300 by 300. Alright, and let's comment out the circle for a second just so I can point out something with the view box. Alright, so you see nothing there, so go into your sandbox.css, use the SVG tag selector, and let's make the background color beige. Okay. Alright. So that's taking up the whole page, right? So what we can do is set a width and height on this SVG element. And we'll use the same values. We'll use 300 and 300. Right now you see it's down to where we want it. We don't really want it quite up there against the top, so what we can do is, and remember we called that wrapper div, we gave that wrapper div a class of canvas, so we can use that class selector to bring it down a little bit. Give the wrapper some padding, we'll say 100 pixels from the top. Alright, there we go. So if you look at this view box, think of this, or think of there being something like a Cartesian coordinate system that's overlaying, or it's laid over it. You just can't see it. It starts with an origin right here at the top left corner, and the x-axis, as usual, would be to the right, positive. Right? And the positive y values actually go down from this origin, not up. So that's something that's different from your usual Cartesian coordinate system. So if you say you have a circle and you want the center of it to be right here in the center of the box, here you would have to give it a CX coordinate of x equals positive 150 and a CY or a Y coordinate of positive 150. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's uncomment that. Make that 150, 150, and make the radius now something like 20. Alright, and there's your little circle in the middle of your box. Right, and it's right there perfectly centered at the center of the box. Right, and if you want to change the color of the circle, you can use the fill property to do that. That's what we use in SVG. Alright, so what color do you want to make it? How about hot pink? Because why not? Right, and there you go. If you want to give it a nice border, you use the stroke property. Alright, and in this way you can use any color you like. We can use, say, Dodger blue, again, because why not? And there you go. You can also put a bigger circle around it. Right, or actually what we can do is let's just get rid of that circle. No, let's not do that. Just get rid of the stroke. Alright, and make this circle bigger. Let's give it a radius of 80. There you go. Let's make it even bigger. Let's give it a radius of 100. Okay. Now we can do some interesting things with this. What we can do is we can put another circle inside of it, even though we're going to nest the element, or we're going to put the element underneath the other circle. And actually, let me just copy that down a line. Now what we can do is we can give this a smaller value for the radius. And let's use a different color. How about Dodger blue? Alright, now you have this, and for example, say you wanted to make a ring. I mean, obviously you have a ring shape here. I can make the fill here. I can just say transparent, right. And then actually no, it doesn't work. Sorry. I don't know what I was thinking on that one. But what you can do if you want to make a ring is you can do something like this. Let's go ahead and comment out that circle. What you can do is give it a stroke. Color of what? Let's keep it hot pink. Alright, let's make the width of that border. It's called stroke width. We'll use the stroke width property. And we'll set that equal to, say, 20 pix. Right. And let's actually make it a different color so it stands out. Okay, so there you go. Now what we could do is we could just make the fill transparent on that, and now you have a ring, right? And if you wanted it to be hot pink, you could just make that the stroke color. And then if you wanted to, you can add another circle inside of it like we did before. And then now you have something like a bullseye, right? And you can do other things. You could draw lines inside of here if you wanted to. You could get rid of this circle, right? And you can use the line element. Okay, the line basically has a starting point and an ending point. And if you want to look at the documentation on that, there. So you've got your x1, y1, which is your first point, that's your starting point, and then you've got your x2, y2, and that's your ending point. And of course you just give it a color using the stroke property. And if you remember your high school algebra course, or the several courses you took, I'm sure this looks pretty familiar to you. Okay. All right, so let's say what we want to do is we want to put a line from the top of the circle all the way to the bottom of the circle, and that means from the top of the outer part of the ring all the way to the bottom. Right? How would you do that? Well, you'd set your x1 value to what? So the center of the circle is going to be over 150 in the x direction and down 150 in the y direction. Now the radius of the circle as we have it is at 100, right? But to get, let's say we want to get here, right, to the inner part of the ring, right? That would be you would think that it would be basically the 150 pixel value minus the radius, right? But actually you have to take into account that the radius extends up into the stroke area. All right, so if the radius is 100 and the stroke width is 20, then we're talking about 110, right? So what if we say 150 minus 110. All right, so that would be what? 40? And we give the y1 a coordinate of what? Sorry, x1 would not be 40. x1 would be 150. It would be y that would be 40, y1. Okay, and then we want to go downward, you know, from the center down to here. So it's the same deal, right? It's going to be 150 plus the radius minus 10, right? So in this case, it's going to be 90. So x1 is not going to change, or x2, excuse me, the x value is not going to change. That'll still be 150. And then now you have y2, and that'll be 150 plus 95, right? So that's going to be 245, right? Got to give it a stroke color. That still won't do anything yet. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we messed that one up. So you can see that if you get your calculations wrong, it's going to mess you up. So again, let's think about this carefully. We're going over 150 pixels, right? So it doesn't matter where we are on this line, it's always going to have an x value of 150 pixels. But to get to this point right here, we need to go from the center, right, which is 150 pixels down, and then we need to go back up. So we need to subtract 95. That's not doing what it should be doing at all, is it? So it's 150 from the center to this part of the ring, right? So to the outer edge of the ring, it would be Okay, why was I saying 5? It's 10, right? So it should be 50, right? So it's 100 minus 10, so 90. So 150 minus 90, right? That would be 60. All right, there you go. I was just being stupid. All right, so then the other way around, it would be 150 plus 90, right, which would be 240, right? There you go. All right, I was just being completely ridiculous. All right, and then if we do the same thing over here, right, then the y value will always be at 150, right, but our x value, right, if we want to put in another line, remember I said we're making kind of like a crosshairs here. So what? Y will stay 150 in both cases. And then x would be what, 150 again minus 90, so that should be the 60. Right, and then over here it should be 240. And there we go, and you have your sniper rifle scope or whatever, depending on how you look at things. Alright, so that's working with circles and lines, and we can also make like a polygon shape. Like, of course a square is a polygon, but we could do other polygons like triangles. With SVG, you have both the you have the rectangle element, and you have, I'm sorry, you don't have the square, do you? Yeah, so you have a rectangle, but you don't have a square. Right, but remember, a square is just a special case of a rectangle where the height and width are both the same. But weirdly enough, you have an ellipse and you have a circle. But a circle is just a special case of an ellipse. So who knows why they do it that way. But for now, let's go ahead and add in some triangles. Try to make them using the polygon element, which is this one right here. Okay, and basically it has a points property, and you just put in your x and y coordinates for all of the points that you want to connect with lines. Alright, so say for us, and we're going to get rid of all of this, we want to put in a couple of triangles. And let's say we want our first point, and our first point is going to be, just say right here at the bottom corner, right? So that will be y equals 150 and x equals 0. So we'll say 0, comma 150. All right, then you just put in a space and you do another coordinate pair. Now, just what I would like to have is, I would like to have this triangle go up with a slope of 2, so for every 1 over it'll go up 2. And I want it to, say, terminate at, I want to go over in the x direction. I want the top to be maybe a third of the way over, so let's just say 100 pixels. So if x is 100, then y is going to be 200, right? Alright. So now, if we look at it, we've got nothing yet. We need a comma there as well. Okay, and then finally, we'll want the bottom part. Let's come down symmetrically, and we'll make that last part 3. No, I don't want to do that. Let me think about this again, because I'm going to put in 2 triangles here. I don't want to put in just one. So I have one like this and one like that. So let's have the first one come down at let's say 200. Now let's not do that, let's do 175. And then of course y equals 150. And again, I'm forgetting my commas here. I don't want to do that. Okay, so there's a triangle, and that didn't work out. Right, because I don't know why I did this. Right, that should be 300. I was thinking halfway down, not the complete bottom of the square. All right, good, and that's over 100, and then why should it's actually, if it's going to go up 200, right, that would be 100 here. And then x would be, yeah, 175 is fine here, and then make this 300. Okay, so there's a triangle. Change its color. And actually I can make two of these, right? I can, and just have one shifted over, right? So this one will have its first point, say, at what? 100? Yeah, do 100, that's fine. We don't want it to go as high as the other one. Oh, no, actually we do want to start there, sorry about that. Here, the next point should be about 220 maybe. Man, let's not do this, let's do 200. And we don't want it to be as high as the other one, so let's say 140. And then finally, we'll make this x equals 300 and y equals 300. Alright, so now we have two triangles. It looks kind of like a pair of mountains. Right? If we want to change the color, we can. And we can actually apply a single color to both of them by wrapping these in an element called a G element. Alright, so take both of your polygons and lift them off of there and put them within your G element. Alright, now if I wanted to give both of these the same color, because these are two triangles, what I could do is I could say fill equals, I'll just use the color olive. Alright, and that makes both of the mountains that color. And let's say that these really are two mountains. Did I say mountains? That's what I meant them to be. So I kind of let the cat out of the bag on that one. So let's give the background color of the whole view box a color of light blue, and say it for the sky. Okay, so now we're starting to create an image here. We've got a couple of mountains, blue sky in the background. Maybe we'd like some clouds. So if we want to create some clouds, we don't want to use perfect circles. That would be kind of funky. Right? Actually, before we do the clouds, let's do a sun. Let's put a sun in here. Right, and we don't have to put it inside of this G element thing here. So you can go down, and the sun will be circular, so we can use a circle. Right, and if we want the sun to sit over to the right over here somewhere, we'll say let the center x component of the center of the circle equal what? Let's say about 200, just to start off. And then the cy, that'll equal maybe about 80. Why not? And then we'll let the radius equal, let's say 40. Might be too big. It is a bit big. Let's make that 30. Alright, and let's make it a little bit smaller, and let's make it 20. Okay, that's not too bad. Alright, let's also shift it up a little bit. So remember, in this case, we're going to be subtracting y values, right? So let's make this 50. Right, that brings it up, and I want to push it over a little bit to the right, so let's make it 240. Alright, so that's probably where I wanted it to be initially. And of course we don't want it to be a black sun. That's crazy. It looks like a black hole up there in the sky. We want it to be, we use the fill property and we'll make it, let's say, gold. Okay, so now you've got a sun in your sky, and let's add some clouds now. Alright, and we can do clouds using, we could use circles, but I'd rather use ellipses. Circles would be a little bit cheesy. We could stack them on top of each other in a funky way to make it look kind of like a puffy cloud. But let's just use ellipses. Alright, so now we go to the MDN docs page and look at the ellipse element. Alright, so it takes two values, right? You've got the X focus and the Y focus, right? And then you've got the distances from the foci or foci, or however you pronounce that, to the edge here, right? Sorry, I don't know what I was talking about. These are the distances here, but these right here are just the center of the ellipse, all right, where you want it to be. So let's say where do you want to put that? We'll put it over at about, say, 80. All right, and then for Y, we'll put it basically at the same level as the sun, so we'll say CY equals 50. All right, and then we'll say RX, and we could say just 20. Let's just do 20 for now. And then RY equals, and we'll also make that 20. Now you know that if we do that, it's going to be a circle, right? Okay, so that's, as I said before, a circle is a special case of an ellipse. We don't want that. All right, so let's elongate it in the X direction. So let's make this something like 80. All right, it's okay, but should probably be a little bit shorter. How about 60? And let's make this about 15. Okay, now it still looks like a black hole ready to suck something up into it. Let's make the color different. Let's make it, these would be gray clouds, right? Not white clouds. Actually, let's see what happens if we make them white. Well, there's only one cloud at this point. Yeah, white's okay. Alright, now we want to kind of give it more of a cloud-like look, so we'll add another ellipse below it. What the heck did I just do? Alright. There we go. Alright, so this is going to be, let's shift it over to the right. So let's make it at 100. We'll shift it down a little bit, which means we have to add something. So let's make that 60. We don't want it to be as big as the other one, so we'll make it 30. And then we'll make this about 10. Alright, and see where we're at. Alright, so now it's starting to be a little bit cloud-like. And then maybe we'll do the same thing up here. Alright, so let's do one more. And what are we going to do? Make this 60. We'll make this 40. We'll give it the same other properties here. Yeah, that looks like a cloud, doesn't it? Alright, and then if we wanted to, right, we could just take the sun and move it over, right? So where do we want the sun to be? We want to be, like, say we didn't want it to be here, we wanted it to be kind of behind the clouds, right, a little bit. Well, we could move the sun over to maybe here. Look at that, it's sitting on top of the cloud. That's no good. Alright, so what you can do is just change the order of the elements. So put the sun back where it was, right? And there it's behind the clouds, but it's too much behind the clouds, right? So I could either make the clouds smaller, or I could make the sun bigger. And also probably, let's make the sun a little bit bigger. Okay, there you go. You got the sun behind the clouds and a nice mountain scene. It's nothing special, but at least you see now how you can use these SVG shapes to make images. And if you get pretty good at it, you can start making really nice looking logos. But anyway, that's as far as we're going to go in this video. And next time we'll work a little bit more with SVG and look at different ways that we can manage our SVGs inside of our React project. So for now, thanks as always for checking me out, and I will see you next time. Cheers.